This is R2D Tech, and today is the big day. It's the iPad Pro. Right. Design. Well, what you can say about Apple is they're pretty good at design. But the design of this iPad is very, very good. It's much better, in my opinion, than the old, blocky feel of the other iPads, which had huge bezels. You know, they get rid of the home button to add gestures and stuff. But we'll talk about that later. Obviously, we've got the matte black version, the 11-inch iPad, so not the bigger version. But it's still a very nice looking iPad with very thinner bezels, not the edge-to-edge experience that Apple might claim it to be, but it's still very, very nice. So around the edges now, Apple have now straightened the edges instead of having the curve on the back, which I prefer to the old iPads. I think it looks a lot more modern, and it's an industrial look, which I really like. If you like that too, then you will like this iPad. The back is made completely of aluminium, which is very nice. It has a nice touch to the hand, it's kind of like a matte finish. And it's very nice. But it might scuff easily. As you might have seen in Jerry Rig Everything's video of the durability test, the structural integrity of the iPad might not be what you would expect it to be, and you should be careful when putting it in your backpack. You should probably get a case if you're thinking about getting one, especially the 12.9-inch one.
Okay, so one thing which is actually really important to mention when talking about iPads, and this iPad in particular, is a display. Even though it's an LCD, which they call liquid retina, which basically just means that it has curved edges, it is a really high quality LCD panel. And to be honest, looking at it myself, I wouldn't be able to distinguish it from an OLED panel, unless you look at things like the always on display, which you don't get on the iPad, but that doesn't bother me too much. One of the main features though of this display is the fact that it has a 120Hz refresh rate. And especially when using the Apple Pencil, this is really important because you have basically no lag or no visible lag on the display when you're using the pencil or when you're just swiping around. And it makes it feel so much more responsive than an old iPad or one of your other tablets like the Samsung Tab 4, because it just seems like it's 2 steps ahead of you all the time. When you swipe, it's already gone to the next page before you can even acknowledge what's just happened. It's so smooth and it's really nice. It's definitely a lot nicer than the iPhone XS, which I found to have an almost slowed down effect on its animations. The animations on this iPad are really crisp and really smooth. Sort of what you'd expect from an Android device.
Now, in terms of speakers, the iPad has 4 speakers and 4 mics, and they're some of the best speakers that I've seen on a tablet. We're going to show you the sound quality now.
Just a young gun with a quick fuse. I was uptight, wanna let loose. I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind.
As you can see, the speakers on this iPad are absolutely great. But another thing which I find really good on this iPad is the audio that you can record from the camera. And as you may know, it's stereo audio. So because there's mics on each side of the iPad, 4 different mics, it can record stereo surround sound basically. If you're talking from the left side of the camera, the person watching the video should be able to tell that you're talking from that side, compared to if you're talking on the right side of the camera. Anyway, so that's what makes this so important. And one really cool thing which you might find interesting is that we've shot all the audio for this video on the iPad Pro. And so you can judge the audio quality for yourself. So now we're going to move straight onto the cameras on this iPad. Personally, I don't think cameras are that important when it comes to a tablet like this, because I don't think anyone or many people at all are going to be walking around with an iPad taking videos and photos. unless you're using it in a studio setup, but you probably have a DSLR or something in that case. On that note, the camera on the back of this iPad is the same camera sensor that you have on the back of the iPhone XR. So it's the same sensor as the primary lens on the iPhone XS and XS Max, which supposedly would make it really good. And it is really good. It's just I found personally that looking at the video quality and photo quality on this iPad, I'm pretty sure it's not as good as what you see on the iPhone XS or XR really. Portrait mode wasn't that great. I could tell that it blurred the edges quite a lot. So I wouldn't personally recommend this iPad for videos or photos, but that's not to say you can't use it. And definitely the front-facing camera is plenty for using it in a Skype call or an online web forum or something. It's definitely sufficient for something like that.
Obviously, the iPad Pro runs iOS, which has its own limitations, and what you'll find is sometimes iOS can't fully harness the power of the iPad Pro, and it is an extremely powerful tablet, which we'll also talk about later. If you're looking for a full desktop experience in running things like CAD programs, so you won't be able to download everything that you want to download like you can on a full desktop OS, which can be annoying for creatives. Obviously, I'm not much of a creative, although I would classify myself as a creative person, you know. Unlike my friend over here, you know. By getting rid of the home button, Apple are now using gestures, which you'll find on such devices as the iPhone XS and XR. So you have to swipe up. There's no home button, so you have to swipe up now from the bottom of the screen to go home. You can kind of grab to view all your open tabs. It's satisfying to use these gestures on such a big screen instead of like the iPhone X, so it's quite nice. I quite like it. Obviously, by getting rid of the home button, you no longer have the fingerprint scanner, which some people might not like. But instead, you now have Face ID, which is better than ever, and it hardly ever gets it wrong. And you can use it in any orientation, so no matter whether it's upside down, it will still unlock, which is really good and quite useful. From the front, the design looks the same all the way around, so you can actually use the iPad in whichever orientation you want. And it's really responsive to this. As soon as you turn it into a different orientation, the screen will automatically switch to that orientation, which is very nice and convenient.
Okay, so one thing which many people overlook when it comes to a tablet like the iPad Pro is the internals. You get an A12X Bionic chip, which is Apple's brand new processor made specifically for this tablet, and hopefully which is going to be used in lots of their products in the future. In benchmark tests, it's actually proven to be slightly faster than processors like the Intel processors in the MacBooks at the moment. And so it seems that this tablet has immense capabilities when it comes to processing power. Of course, software, like we said, holds it back slightly. Paired with 4GB of RAM, this may be a bit low in terms of what you can do with the memory. But it's a tablet with iOS, you can't really download really big softwares like Fusion anyway. So it's definitely going to be fine for the things that you can do. And it will be perfect for stuff like video editing and video exporting from LumaFusion, Adobe Rush, iMovie, or any of these softwares. Now, one important thing to mention is that the models of this iPad Pro with 64GB, 256GB, 512GB all have 4GB of RAM. The 1TB model, on the other hand, has 6GB of RAM, which is more obviously. Most people think that this will make the 1TB model a lot faster, but in fact, the 6GB of RAM is needed with the larger storage 1TB model to process all of this space. So in fact, in benchmark tests, it turns out that the 4GB models with less storage can outperform, or does outperform, the 1TB model with 6GB of RAM, because there's a lot more storage which needs to be handled by the memory. So don't be fooled by Apple or anyone who tells you that the 6GB will make your device a lot faster.
In terms of ports, Surprisingly, this year, it's very shocking, Apple have moved from the Lightning cable to USB-C. Obviously, it's a much more versatile port. You can do things like connect the iPad to an external monitor. With a dongle, at least you can connect SD cards and things like that. Unfortunately, you can't connect to external SSDs and hard drives, which is kind of annoying. But I guess if you're a photographer, you have a SD card, you can still do that. Now, also, Apple have gotten rid of the headphone jack, which is kind of annoying, especially on a tablet, because you're gonna be watching movies and YouTube videos and stuff like that. But as long as you have Bluetooth headphones, even AirPods, which will connect nicely, especially because the iPad has a W1 chip inside it, or you just have a dongle, which are getting cheaper every day. That shouldn't be much of a problem for you anyway.
Okay, so now we've got the most important part of this video, the Apple Pencil 2nd generation unboxing. We're just gonna take all the unnecessary designed in California stuff out, and you have the Apple Pencil. It's got a matte finish. You can get a custom engraving down here if you want, but that takes extra time and I couldn't be bothered to wait. So this year it's a rubbery matte finish, unlike last year's glossy plastic design. And it's actually a bit shorter as well, but I think it's a bit more weighted, which makes it nicer to hold. And one thing which I'd like to address is Jerry Rig Everything said that you couldn't replace the tips, but he just tried to pull it out and break it. If you unscrew it, you can replace the tips. So he was wrong. So obviously, when it comes to the Apple iPad Pro, the Pencil has always been a big part of what makes it so special, especially with these new models where the Pencil can actually magnetically clip onto the side of the iPad itself and wirelessly charge. So you don't need to charge the pen by plugging it into the bottom anymore, which was pretty dangerous, and also you could snap the pen's port as well if you accidentally dropped it on this, which would be quite annoying. So the magnet on the Apple Pencil itself and the iPad are both pretty strong, so when it's attached onto the iPad Pro, it's not just going to fall off easily, and also, most importantly, if it's in your backpack, it's not just going to fall off and stop charging, which would actually be pretty annoying. One thing to mention also is that the battery life on the Apple Pencil is amazing. So this could last easily through the whole day. Like, people have said it's lasted 10 hours for them without charging at all. And obviously, most of the time when you're not using it, it's going to be charging anyway on the iPad. So it's always going to be around 100% anyway, which is pretty handy. What makes the Pencil so special is that the Apple Pencil is actually probably the most precise stylus out of all of the ones you can get, like the Surface Pro 6 or other laptops of similar caliber. So obviously you can do things like sketching really well with this pencil on the iPad Pro. But another thing which makes it special is that it actually has pressure sensitivity and stuff. So if you use the side, you can actually get like a really good sketching effect. And the more you go over this, the darker the sketch will become. Another thing you can use this for is video editing, which is really handy for scrolling through clips, cutting sections of the clips and so on. But just in general, searching the web or just going through the apps on the home screen, it's really easy to do with this pencil. And it actually makes it slightly more enjoyable than just using your fingers, because it's a more precise contact point.
In terms of battery life, this is one of the iPad's greatest strengths. Now, normally, I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. Surprising, I know. I start playing around with the iPad. I use it throughout the day with intervals in between. I stop using it around 10:30 in the evening. And by that point, it's still on 25%, so amazing battery life here. Well, I don't know. Some people might use it more than me. I don't know, but I use it quite a lot. So, amazing battery life. To conclude, I would say that this right here, I know you can't see what I'm pointing at, but I'm pointing at the iPad, is probably the best tablet that you could possibly get right now. But you have to take into account that it's still a tablet, and you can't really run full desktop apps, at least at the moment. If companies start developing apps that can harness the full power of the iPad, then you could call it a full desktop replacement. For some people, in fact for most people, I think the iPad will be perfectly fine, because all you're going to want to do is things like Microsoft Word, maybe some OneNote and taking notes and stuff like that. Or even you can edit video perfectly fine, you can create music, you can do all the things that most people would want to do on the iPad. So I would say it could be your laptop replacement. Along with the pencil or maybe the folio case, it could be your dream setup. I would want one.
Okay, so for my conclusions, should you go and pick up one of these iPads? Now, we have the 11-inch version in the studio today, but the 12.9-inch also has its benefits, and that's one thing that we forgot to talk about in the main video, the different sizes. The 11-inch is obviously slightly smaller, but the display is still quite substantial in size, and it's not actually much smaller than the display on the 12.9-inch when you look at it. If you're looking to do lots and lots of graphics design, drawing and video editing straight on the iPad, the larger model might be better in terms of it's just you can get more on the screen, and also for multitasking it's better when you have more space, so you can have both apps with enough space so that you can use them properly. Obviously the 11-inch is a lot more portable, and it just seems to work better when you're taking it out and about and you want to do something quickly on the go. It's just more convenient overall. But another reason why you might want to get the 11-inch is that it generally feels a lot more sturdy. From holding both the 11-inch and 12.9-inch, I don't know if you've seen Joe Rogothing's video where he basically snaps an iPad in half, but the 12.9-inch is definitely less structurally sound. They're both pretty weak, but the 11-inch can probably hold up better. From all the specs, the A12X Bionic and everything, I'd say this is a real powerhouse. It's probably the device to get if you're looking for a powerhouse, but unfortunately iOS still has extreme limitations on the software you can download. For example, you can't download major CAD softwares like Fusion, which is actually really important to me. But if you're a video editor, this is great because the Apple Pencil makes it really, really easy to video edit, and it's really tactile and really responsive with this pen. Other things like photo editing I hear are also really good. I myself don't edit photos that often, but Photoshop, the full version of Photoshop, will be coming to this iPad in January. So if you're really into artistic design on a tablet or on a computer, then this is the device to get for you, because I think the touchscreen will also make it really easy to use. Another thing which is really cool is the AR implementations on this device. You can use this to represent CAD models in real life, but also Photoshop, which is coming out, is going to take advantage of this, and you can see what they're doing with that in the Apple keynote. So would I buy this again if I had the choice? Yes, I would. I think it's a great device, the speakers are great, it's portable, it's really powerful, you can do most things on it, and in my opinion it definitely can replace a laptop, because most people in fact don't use CAD softwares, and softwares that most people do use like photo editing and video editing, things like that, you can do really well on this device. Pencil just makes it that little bit better. So that's my opinion. That's it.